So what if the secret to understanding, like your chronic neck pain, hasn't been hiding in some modern anatomy textbook, but hanging in an Austrian art gallery since 1907?
I mean, it is a radical question for sure, but it gets right to the heart of what we are exploring today.
Yeah.
Because, we usually expect biological breakthroughs to come from pristine laboratories, right?
Mhm.
Not from the swirling gold leaf of a symbolist painter.
Right. But the materials we're looking at today really force a completely different perspective. We're doing a deep dive into episode 9X of Le Visionnaire du Geste.
Which translates to the visionaries of gesture.
Exactly. And this specific presentation is titled La Spirale de Vie, or The Spiral of Life. And in this, Dr. Christophe Delong and Kinexa present just a mind-bending crossover between fine art and human biomechanics.
Yeah, they literally take the masterpieces of Gustav Klimt and lay them side by side with modern anatomical studies. We're talking pioneers like Thomas Myers and Donald Ingber here.
Which is wild to think about.
It really is. And the overarching mission of our deep dive today is to help you, the listener, fundamentally rethink how your own body moves. The goal is to move away from the traditional idea that you're just a collection of separate mechanical parts bolted together and to start seeing yourself as a continuous living network.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the science, we actually have to start with the art.
We do, yeah.
The foundation of this whole concept rests on the visual evidence left behind by Gustav Klimt. He was an Austrian painter working at the turn of the 20th century.
And the core theme running through his most famous work is, well, it's continuity.
Yes.
So a perfect example is his 1907 masterpiece, The Kiss. It's an incredibly striking image. You have a man and a woman embracing...
But they aren't painted as two distinct human figures just standing next to each other, right?
Exactly. They are fusing together inside this massive golden cloak. And that cloak is covered in intricate serpentine motifs, just endless spirals and golden networks.
When you look at it, it really feels like it's pulsing with energy.
It does. And according to the presentation, Klimt never painted separated bodies. He painted their intertwining. He was trying to capture an invisible continuity that connects every living being to its surroundings.
So these golden networks aren't just stylistic choices to make the canvas look pretty.
No, not at all. They are literal representations of biological continuity. That's the central thesis here. Living things have no strict borders.
Wow. And you see this expanded in his 1902 work too, right? The Beethoven Frieze.
Yes, exactly. It's this massive 34-meter-long fresco depicting humanity's journey toward joy.
Right.
But he illustrates this journey through a chaotic, beautiful mass of intertwined bodies pushing and pulling against each other, just locked in tension and resolution.
Wait, I need to jump in here with a question.
Sure, go for it.
Because looking at these paintings, so is the argument here that Klimt was a secret anatomist sneaking into morgues at night? Or is it more like he intuitively sensed the physics of human connection?
It's definitely the latter.
Because it almost feels like that moment in a sci-fi movie where the hero suddenly sees the raw data code behind the simulated world. Like, was Klimt essentially painting the invisible forces rather than the literal flesh and bone?
That is exactly it. What's fascinating here is that it was just profound intuition. Klimt was not a biologist, but he observed human movement, tension, and emotion so closely that he began to see the underlying mechanics of it all. He completely bypassed the superficial skin and painted the energetic reality underneath.
That's incredible.
In his art, the human body is not an isolated object floating in space. It is a node. It's a single point of intersection in a vast network of gravitational, muscular, and emotional forces.
Man.
There is actually a brilliant quote attributed to Klimt in the sources. He said, "Art is a line around your thoughts."
Art is a line around your thoughts.
Right.
That's a really beautiful way to phrase it. He was making the invisible realities of the body visible. But that intuition has to translate to the physical world somehow. Like, if Klimt painted a continuous network, how does that actually map onto the wet, messy reality of human anatomy?
Well, this is where we transition from the art gallery to the modern biomechanics lab. And the bridge between the two is a biological structure called fascia.
Hold on. When I hear fascia, I just think of the tough white gristle you have to cut off a piece of steak before you cook it.
Most people do, yeah.
Are you telling me that this leftover connective tissue is actually dictating how my skeletal structure moves?
That is the common misconception for sure, that fascia is just anatomical packing peanut material.
Right, like filler.
Exactly. But in reality, fascia is a continuous, sheer, fibrous webbing that wraps around, interpenetrates, and connects absolutely every structure in your body. It literally goes from the soles of your feet to the inside of your skull.
Wait, so it's not just wrapping around the muscles, it's actually weaving through them.
Weaving right through them. To understand how this works, we have to look at the groundbreaking work of Thomas Myers, specifically his 2001 book, Anatomy Trains.
Anatomy trains, okay.
Yeah. Previously, anatomy textbooks taught us that a muscle was an isolated unit that attached to two bones. The bicep contracts, the arm bends, simple mechanics.
Right, like levers.
But Myers showed that fascias form continuous anatomical trains or tracks that run throughout the body without any interruption.
And the mechanics of this are just incredible. The presentation details 3 specific chains to illustrate how this webbing functions.
Do you want to break those down?
Yeah, so first is the superficial backline. This is a continuous track of tissue running from the very top of your head, down the back of your neck, down your spine, the back of your legs, and right down to your heel.
It's massive.
It is. And it functions almost like a thick biological bungee cord holding you upright against gravity.
And then you have the deep front line. This one represents a continuous fascial connection from the deep core of your foot arch, traveling up through the deep structures of your legs and pelvis.
Just going straight up through the core.
Exactly, running right through your chest cavity and attaching all the way up into the inside of your skull. This line is deeply tied to your breathing and core stability.
Right, because if your deep front line is restricted, your diaphragm can't expand fully.
Exactly.
And then the third one is the spiral line, which I think is probably the most dynamic. It is a helical path, like a literal spiral of tissue that wraps around your body.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It connects your skull to your opposite shoulder, wraps around your ribs to your opposite hip, and down to your feet.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, think about the physics of a baseball pitcher throwing a fastball. The power doesn't just come from the arm muscle contracting.
Right, it's a whole body movement.
When the pitcher winds up, they twist their body, physically winding up that spiral line of fascia like a giant rubber band. They are literally storing kinetic energy in the fascial web.
Oh, I see.
When they release the pitch, that rubber band snaps back, releasing energy from the foot, across the hip, through the torso, and out through the arm. Thomas Myers' Anatomy Trains is describing the exact same continuous, spiraling biological reality that Klimt was painting a century earlier.
Man, here's where it gets really interesting, because the materials make a claim about this fascial network that challenges everything we learn in basic biology.
They really do.
They argue that there is actually no end to one muscle and no beginning of another. It is pure continuity. Let me try an analogy here.
Go for it.
So we usually think of the human body like a Lego set. You have the bicep piece, and you snap it onto the forearm piece.
Right, snap them together.
Exactly. They are connected, but they are clearly 2 separate plastic blocks. But this presentation is saying the body is actually more like one continuous piece of blown glass, where one shape just melts and flows directly into the next without a seam.
That is a highly accurate analogy. In the biomechanical community, they call this concept the body without borders.
The body without borders.
Yeah, let's look at the cellular level to explain why this is true. Your bicep doesn't suddenly stop at a firm border. Instead, the muscle cells gradually taper off, and the cells responsible for building fascia, called fibroblasts, start laying down collagen fibers more densely.
Oh, so it just shifts its composition.
Exactly. The loose, fleshy webbing of the muscle seamlessly condenses into the dense, rope-like tissue of a tendon, which then weaves directly into the periosteum, the outer layer of the bone. It never actually disconnects.
Wow. So the tissue just changes density and character based on the forces it needs to handle? It's a single, continuous piece of biological fabric.
Which perfectly mirrors Klimt's golden ornaments.
Right. He didn't draw hard black outlines between his figures because, biologically speaking, borders are an illusion.
Precisely. But, this raises an important question.
Right. Because I completely buy the blown glass analogy, but soft, hot glass stretches and warps, and delicate glass shatters under pressure.
True.
If our bodies are just a continuous web of fleshy fascia without any bolted-together parts, why don't we instantly collapse into a puddle on the floor under the weight of gravity?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that exact biomechanical puzzle is what led biologist Donald Ingber to look outside of biology and into the world of architecture in 1997.
Oh, interesting.
He introduced the concept of tensegrity to human anatomy.
Wait, tensegrity, that is a heavy architectural word. How should we even picture this?
So instead of a brick wall, which relies on heavy blocks stacked directly on top of one another in compression.
Right, like a traditional building.
Exactly. Think of a modern camping tent instead. The rigid fiberglass poles of a tent do not actually lock into each other to form a freestanding frame.
Oh, true. If you just stood the poles up, they would immediately fall over.
Right. What holds the tent up is the continuous tension of the fabric pulling evenly against those poles. The poles push out, and the fabric pulls in.
Or kind of like a bicycle wheel. You have a heavy metal rim and a center hub, but they're connected by these incredibly thin wire spokes.
Yes, great example.
The spokes aren't pillars holding the rim up. They are wires pulling everything toward the center with perfect balanced tension.
Exactly. Ingber established that the human body is a continuous tensegrity structure. Your bones are the rigid tent poles, or the bicycle hub. They're essentially floating inside the continuous tension of your fascial network.
Floating. Wow.
And the defining rule of a tensegrity structure is that local tension affects the global network. If you tighten one single wire spoke on a bicycle wheel too much, the entire metal rim warps out of shape.
Because the tension is instantly distributed across the whole system.
Yes.
The materials provide some highly specific practical examples of this that completely changed how I think about my own minor injuries.
Oh yeah, they're eye-opening.
They point out that a tight plantar fascia, meaning a restriction or tightness in the sole of your foot, can transmit that tension all the way up the superficial back line and cause a restriction in your cervical spine.
Which is wild.
A problem in the arch of your foot can literally manifest as a chronic pain in your neck.
They give another fascinating example regarding thoracic tension, actually.
Oh, right, the chest tightness.
Yeah. Suppose you have a tight, dehydrated area fascia in your chest or mid-back, maybe from hunching over a steering wheel for years.
Or sitting at a desk.
Exactly. That localized tightness alters the global pull of the entire tensegrity network to the point that it can change the biomechanics of your hip. You might go to a doctor complaining of severe hip pain, assuming your hip joint is failing.
But the hip is just the victim. The structural root of the problem is actually sitting higher up in your chest, pulling the web out of alignment.
Exactly.
We always just assume the area that hurts is the area that is broken.
But as the presentation notes, tout est connecté. Everything is connected. Whether it's a sports injury, a surgical scar, an adhesion, or just a patch of dehydrated tissue from lack of movement.
Right.
That restriction acts like a knot in a sweater. If you pull a thread at the bottom of a sweater, you see the fabric pucker and distort all the way up to the collar. It radiates tension distally at a distance across the entire web.
So what does this all mean practically? I mean, we've established the visionary intuition of Gustav Klimt. We've explored the anatomical science of Thomas Meyer's fascial lines and Donald Ingber's tensegrity.
Right.
How do Dr. Christophe Delong and Kinexa actually translate this theory into action?
It really comes down to their methodology, which they call cartography or le réseau mapping the network. Kinexa takes the philosophical intuition of Klimt and the biomechanical realities of modern science and applies them to physical movement and therapy.
Okay.
Where Klimt saw golden spirals pulsing with energy, a practitioner trained in this methodology sees physical fascial lines running through the body. They aim to physically read this continuous network.
It's worth noting here that Kinexa Formation presents this as their specific methodology. We aren't here to endorse specific clinical practices, obviously, but examining their theoretical approach to mapping the body is just a fascinating way to look at human health.
Absolutely, because if you come in with a localized issue, say shoulder pain, they aren't just looking at the shoulder.
Right.
They are tracing that tension back along the spiral line or the deep front line to find where the actual knot in the web is hiding.
Because while art intuited the continuity, modern biomechanics proves it is there to be found.
Exactly. The goal is to locate those hidden fascial restrictions and release them. And the presentation reaches a really compelling conclusion about what happens when you do.
That's on.
It suggests that when the spiral line, for example, is flowing freely without any fascial restriction, human movement is completely transformed.
It reverts to exactly what Klimt painted on the canvas. Movement becomes fluid, continuous, alive. It's not just about fixing a painful joint. It's about restoring the natural, uninterrupted flow of tension through the entire tensegrity structure.
Exactly. It's about letting the body function as the single, borderless organism it evolved to be.
Incredible. And for those listening who are captivated by this intersection of art and science, The Kinexa formation materials actually outline several resources to explore this further, right?
Yes, they do. If you want to explore the source material directly, they have an ebook titled Klimt l'Espirale de Vie.
Right, and you can also watch the full video of Les Visionnaires du Geste, episode 9.
They also highly recommend reading Thomas Meyer's 2001 book, Anatomy Trains.
And Donald Ingber's 1997 paper on tensegrity.
Yeah. And finally, they offer a complete visual presentation called Kinexa x Klimt. If you want to see their mapping methodology in action, you can actually find out more at formation.kinexa.ai.
It is a remarkable synthesis. They're asking us to bridge disciplines that we normally keep strictly segregated, art history and biomechanical physics.
It's totally true.
And I think understanding this crossover completely redefines how you should view your own physical self. We really have to discard the old industrial mental model. Your body is not a machine made of isolated parts that occasionally break down and need replacing.
No, not at all.
It is a tensegrity masterpiece. It is a continuous biological ornament, a living web of tension and compression that is constantly adapting to the physical forces around it.
So the next time you wake up with a stiff neck or a nagging ache in your lower back, take a moment before you just blindly stretch that one localized spot.
Good advice.
Think about the continuity. Think about the anatomy trains running from your heel to your skull. You might want to consider that the root of your neck pain is actually a tension hiding all the way down in the sole of your foot.
Right, because knowledge of this continuous network empowers you to understand your body holistically rather than playing whack-a-mole with symptoms.
Exactly. It makes you appreciate the incredible engineering going on under your skin every time you take a step or throw a ball or even just breathe.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
We started today looking at a classic painting, The Kiss, and realized that those golden swirling patterns weren't just a decoration. They were a literal map of our fascial architecture.
Which leaves us with a truly fascinating thought to mull over. Our bodies evolved over millions of years as these perfectly tensioned, continuous webs built for complex, multi-directional movement.
Right.
And the fascial network thrives on dynamic tension to stay hydrated and elastic. So what is it doing to our tensegrity structure when we sit entirely motionless in an ergonomic office chair, staring at a screen for 9 hours a day?
Oh, man.
If our bodies are living, moving art, are our modern sedentary lifestyles essentially unweaving the masterpiece?
No.